Costs are getting insane, from raw materials to factory product costs to tariffs, shipping, exchange rates, warehousing, and even pay-per-click advertising. So what can we do in this crazy supply chain and inflationary environment? Well, in this video, I break down exactly what's happening, but most importantly, the 5 actionable, tangible things that you can do to get in front of it and come out the other side stronger than your competition. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome to Heist, where we break down the tangible, actionable things that you can do in your physical products or Amazon brand to be successful. The last couple years for the world, and certainly for e-commerce physical product sellers, has been a wild ride. The virus has led to a tectonic shift in the way that we live our lives, and most importantly, the way that we shop and buy our goods. The e-commerce marketplace has fast forwarded in terms of growth rates and maturity 12 years in a matter of 12 months. And while most of us as physical product sellers on marketplaces like Amazon have reaped the rewards of that growth with increased sales, increased profit, and really insane positive developments for our brands, that doesn't mean the road hasn't been rocky and isn't going to get rockier. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what's happened, rewinding back to a couple years ago to current state and what has changed. And most importantly, I'm going to break down 5 things and 5 elements that you can tangibly address in your own business. Be sure to stay through to the end, because one of these tips is going to be trench warfare negotiations with a vendor in WeChat, where I go through a blow-by-blow of something that took place here over the last month to try to salvage one of my own products using these strategies. So let's dive into it. So if we were to rewind the clock to 2019, before all of the melee of the last couple of years, this first example is pretty typical of what you could find for a product selling on Amazon. So in this case, I'm using a price point of $50. You kind of use your imagination. It really scales to any price point, frankly. But in this example of a $50 product, the factory cost roughly back then would have been about $12. So generally speaking, the product cost as a percentage of top line price is usually about 25 to 35% of that price point. In this case, I use an example of a 28% COGS product. So that would make it $12. So using the ocean dollar per CBM freight costs at the time, the price point of this product would have been around $1.50. Duties would have been 3 to 5%, which was pretty standard at the time before the Trump tariffs came into account, which was 36 cents in this case. Ground freight, again, pretty minimal. Access to LTL, rail, and even UPS small parcel delivery was relatively inexpensive before all of the congestion, demand, and shortages happened. So 50 cents a unit was pretty conceivable via LTL. Warehousing, super minimal. I've chalked up 10 cents per product per month here, but really most of the time you would send your product directly into Amazon. There was very minimal warehousing fees unless you had long-term storage beyond 90 days of storing a product at Amazon. Very minimal need for a 3PL to stage inventory in and go to Amazon after the fact. Amazon referral fee, about 15% for most categories, so $7.50 here. Fulfillment, down the middle, around $4 a unit. The Amazon pay-per-click cost was about 8% tacos. That was pretty standard back then. So 8% of your total price point would be dedicated towards Amazon pay-per-click, in this example, $4. Returns, about 5%. Depends on the category, obviously. Electronics is usually double digits. Some are like 2-3%. But in this case, a down the middle 5% assessment, leaving a net profit of $17.54 and 35% for a total ROI of 146%. Sweet product, you'd sell this all day, every day, and this is a pretty standard example of some of the cost structures that you would have anticipated a couple years back. What's really important about this ROI figure, and why it's really important to have an ROI north of 100% after all of these fees, is that your net profit of $17.54 covers your factory cost of $12. So in other words, to order a next batch of inventory, the profit, dollar profit that I have made is enough, at least enough to pay for that $12 cost. And in this case, you actually have $5.54 in profit after buying your next batch that you could use to pay yourself, to grow new SKUs, etc. It's very, very, very difficult to grow without using your own savings or strategic debt to scale when your products aren't delivering an ROI north of 100%. Fast forward to today, and things have gotten, shall we say, a little bit more complicated as it comes to cost pressures. So using that same price point of $50, the factory costs in most cases have gone up about 10%. So due to raw materials, congestion in China and issues in China, and other global demand shortages, 10% increase in factory costs is definitely not uncommon to have seen the last couple of years. The big one though is ocean freight. So previously it used to cost about $4,000 to $5,000 per container, whereas now in the modern environment, it's not uncommon to get north of $20,000 per container, not even including some of these congestion fees that may be coming down the pipe. So 4 to 5x your actual cost to get it from Asia to the United States via ocean freight. Duties have jumped significantly as well from that 3 to 5% pre-Trump tariff era to, with the Trump tariff, between 15 and 25% on most products. The average tariff has been about 20%. So unless your product has dodged those Trump tariffs and been in a category that didn't see those, it's fairly common to see another 20% hit on your costs, bringing that category from 36 cents, almost nothing, to $6.40 per unit. Ground freight has gone up a little bit as well, so LTL congestion, rail congestion, and shortages with UPS and demand with UPS has increased ground freight in the US about 20%. Warehousing has gone up significantly as well. It's pretty common now to see about $1 per SKU per month, depending on the size of the product, simply because you've got to take it to a 3PL warehouse in most cases first, and then slowly drip feed in proportional inventory into Amazon, whereas before it used to be a straight shot. So warehousing has definitely gone up stateside. Referral fees have been the same. Amazon fulfillment's gone up about 5%, but where Amazon's good at nickel and diming you on just about everything, they salvaged us when it came to the actual FBA fulfillment fee, which was nice, so only about a 5% pop there. Amazon pay-per-click has gone up, so whereas it used to be about 8%, it's not uncommon to have 12 to 15% tacos or total advertising costs of your overall revenue as a proportion of pay-per-click. So another 5% increase here takes that from $4 to $6 per product per unit. Returns, again, about the same here. I don't think there was a really big shift there, so that is kind of a wash. But obviously the net profit, assuming that the price hasn't changed, has gone down significantly to $250 a unit, a measly 5% net profit after everything, but most detrimentally, 18.94% ROI. So you basically have $250, then you've got to go back and buy product for $13.20. Again, unless you've got debt reserves, unless you've got other strategic access to capital or really long payment terms with vendors, that's very untenable for most people to successfully scale and grow using a physical products brand. You can obviously change the price, and there's some other things you can do here, but the $1 million or multi-million dollar question for us as Amazon sellers, for these little red guys here, what are some things that we can do to get in front of it, to make it more approachable, to make it more effective to find ROI accretive products? Let's dive into that. So the first strategy that we're going to get into is all about optimizing the size of your individual package as well as your MasterCard. Said another way, size matters. Am I right, ladies? Before I break that down, I've got the Size Matters Matrix by Heist. If you want access to this, go ahead and hit the link down below. I'm going to get your email. I'm going to spam you daily, but you're going to get the size matrix in return. Just kidding. I'm not going to spam you. So while historically, because the margins were there and the ROI was there, you didn't necessarily need to fully optimize every nook and cranny of your Amazon products. Now it's becoming more important to do that. So size is a massive thing. Basically, the dimensions and or the weight of your product are going to dictate what fees your product is going to be charged at Amazon. And this structure here really breaks down all of the different fees and all of the different dimensions that lead to those categorizations and fees. So looking at this example here of this particular ASIN, sorry if this is your ASIN, but you got to have an example somehow. The dimensions here are 13.54 by 6.18 by 1.85 inches, and it is 1.01 pounds. So given this, if you kind of come down here to the bottom, the longest side is 15 to 18 inches, the median side is 12 to 14, shortest is 0.75 to 8, and the weight is 1 plus to 2. So the fee on this one's $4.95 because it fits within this categorization. And here's all the breakdown of those dimensions. But the next tier down with a lower fee structure is basically just 1 pound is all that we need to change here. So if I just took this product from 1.01 pounds down to 1 pound, I would basically go down from large standard 1 plus to 2 pounds to the 12 plus to 16 ounce category. And I'd go from $4.95 to $4.20, a 70-cent drop in the actual price. And this product here sells for $19.99, so 70 cents is substantial. It's not anything to scoff at. And all they would need to do is take 0.01 pounds out of this product to achieve that. To go one size even further down to the next small standard size, in addition to dropping that weight by 0.01, if they took the shortest side from 1.85 inches down to 3/4 of an inch, they would shave down $1.63 from what it was before, so down to $3.32. So you need to take a very hard look at your existing categorization and size category and analyze all the elements that are leading to the fee structure that you're in. In addition to individual packaging, you can also optimize your master cartons as they ship from Asia to the US to create a much more optimized container. Oftentimes we ship a lot of air, unnecessary air in our master cartons, and by optimizing sometimes even 5-10 centimeters can dramatically increase the amount that you can put on a container. And if you can go from say 2,000 units per container to 2,500 units a container, that drops the cost of shipping 20% and can have a massive contribution to your overall profitability and ROI. So again, if you want access to the Size Matters spreadsheet, hit the link down below. Also, Smart Scout has a really cool dynamic tool. If you wanted a more software-friendly version, check out Smart Scout. The second area that we're going to dive into is freight. Now, whether this is a force of habit or just doing what's easy, most of us stick to a freight provider that we've used for years. This is the time to get creative and to scour the earth for freight options, reliable freight options that you can implement in your own business. If you haven't had multiple quotes over the last 6 months, it's time to bring out the Rolodex, do some research, and start to get multiple quotes from multiple vendors to see if you are getting the best price from your current freight forwarder. I'll drop a link down below to the freight forwarder that I've been using the better part of the last 6 months if you want to give them a crack. But regardless of who you're using now, get multiple ones on the list and see if you can identify a more cost-effective option. The third strategy that you should look into is all about tariffs. So whether you liked former President Trump or not, this isn't a political channel, but the Trump tariffs have undoubtedly impacted your business if you're selling physical products that originate from China. Historically, as I kind of showed at the top of this, you typically see tariffs in the sub 3% range for most products. But with that Trump tariff, most products went to 15 or 25% more on goods coming from China into the US. But there's really 4 things that you can do to reduce your tariff liability. The first is to conduct an HTS code analysis. So every product that gets imported into the US has a unique code that typically most freight forwarders help you, or your vendor might have helped you determine what that number is. But it's a series of numbers which classifies the product, and those classifications determine what the tariff rate is. If you haven't done it yet, now's the time to do some deep dive research and analysis, whether you use a freight forwarder to help you. There's people on Fiverr that might be able to help you as well. But conduct a deep dive analysis, and are you actually classifying your product correctly? It's distinctly possible that with some strategic analysis of your product and HTS code, that you might actually qualify for a category that defines your product that has a lower tariff rate. You want to make sure that this is done by the pros though, because there is some legal implications if you misclassify your product. And it does raise some red flags if you've imported products on a previous HTS code and have changed it. But it's definitely worth a hard look because it could save you upwards of 20%. The second and related analysis is something called an exemption analysis. So when these tariffs first came out, there was exemption periods where various brands and companies could submit to the US government basically to say, hey, we think for XYZ reasons this product category or our product should get an exemption from the tariffs. The cool thing about this is if those exemptions are related to your HTS code or your product or products similar to yours, you can ride the coattails of that exemption and get that exemption yourself when you import goods. And exempted products typically get close to zero tariffs applied. So it's a massive benefit if you can find precedents where an exemption has been levied for your particular product category. The third thing is kind of a gem, but oftentimes many of us may have non-product related costs in our invoices. These could be things like engineering fees, could be mold costs. It could be price increases that we maybe have for a certain period of time that have been negotiated with our vendor. And when we hit particular volumes, then our price goes down. I suggest that you pull all of those non-product incremental costs in your invoice out. It's not going to be a huge amount, but all of those little costs, especially at tariff rates of north of 20%, can add up. And then finally, which is probably the most strategic / pain in the butt / less likely for your average Joe Schmo seller to implement, is something that's called a country of origin analysis or country of origin optimization. To save you the boring import law, and by the way, I'm not a lawyer, so talk to a lawyer for any of this stuff to make sure it's done properly for your particular business. But there's something called substantial transformation, which basically defines when is the product most substantially transformed into its sellable state. And oftentimes where the majority of that substantial transformation has taken place can be used to determine the country of origin. So let's say as an example, you take all these raw materials or parts from China and you have them assembled and programmed and really made into the product that it is in Mexico. The country of origin could be Mexico and not China, even if a significant amount of the parts and raw materials going into that product were manufactured elsewhere. It's a simple example, but look at places where you could potentially arbitrage the development of your product to a non-punitive tariff country outside of China, using some elements of the product from China, but where it's actually substantially transformed elsewhere. This typically requires a country of origin analysis that's done with the US government, but it's super inexpensive and you typically get your feedback in about 3 to 4 weeks. So you can submit this analysis. The government will say, yes, I agree with this, or no, I don't. And it's really no harm, no foul to evaluate these more sophisticated supply chain strategies. So one of the biggest things you can do is to actually negotiate with your factories to see if you can reduce the factory costs or some of the other payment terms and elements of your particular product. I'm going to walk through an example here, going through a blow-by-blow exchange over multiple days. It might have even been over a week with one of my factories for a product that is on that threshold of, yes, it's working, yes, it's profitable. I don't want to let it go because it's got great reviews. But the cost of shipping primarily has had a very punitive impact on this product. The product is just about an $8 cost, but the cost to ship it from China to the US is now just about $7 or $8. So it's almost the exact same cost of the product itself to actually ship it. So I worked to try to negotiate this price down, which in times like this is incredibly difficult because the RMB exchange rate to US dollar has gone against us in negotiation favor. The raw materials of most of the products have gone up. This product has a lot of PVC in it and those costs have gone up. So it's very difficult in this environment to reduce costs from your factory. But as the famous Canadian Wayne Gretzky once said, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So let's walk through this. So I basically approached and said, hey, we need to get a reduced price on this thing. What can you do for me? The vendor is basically, hi, can I know what the order quantity is? And then she's going to discuss. I said, it kind of depends. I need to evaluate the new expensive shipping and your costs to know if this product still makes sense. So she says, understand, can I base this on a 40 high cube quantity first? I said, yes, no problem. I also need to know the quantity per 40 high cube, please. Because I'm trying to see if I can optimize the quantity here. And then she says, I'm going to also try to evaluate with 2 containers so you can order at the same time and save on bulk pricing. I said, that's fine. So she goes through the pricing and basically it's US $764, which is effectively the exact same price that I'm paying now. So I said, so exact same price, brutal. Yes, with this extra that I add on to it and the embossed logo. So I basically said, we need a better price. Shipping cost per container is $20K. It's $6 to $7 shipping alone. She said, could I suggest you changing to a smaller size for the current one? So this is a very key point. When you negotiate with vendors, they're often going to get you to reduce the spec of your product and use that as a way to quote you a lower price. So changing the size, changing the quality, changing the number of features, whatever it is, but reducing their costs on feature production to in turn give you a lower price. So she says, could I suggest going to a smaller size? I said, to make this work, I need you to find another price. No, I need the current size. No, I need the exact same specification. Again, you need to be pretty firm on this, but cheaper. When ocean freight returns to better levels, we can resume the current price. I will need to kill this product at the proposed pricing and we all lose. So it's really key there. Stand firm that you need the exact spec. That's really important. The other thing that I like to do is say, hey, and I did this with RMB exchange rates a couple years ago as well, but just say, hey, when they return to a normal level, I'm fine to go back to what the price was because the pricing worked back when freight was normal. So you can also kind of put out those carrots that you're more than happy to actually increase the price later, but you need this reduced pricing now to help absorb some of the pain. So then she goes in as, because since I was pretty firm on the size of the product and the feature set not being able to change, she says, what is the container pricing you're getting? Because maybe we can use ours. Again, pretty key tactic number 2, because if they use their own freight provider, oftentimes they might be able to get a spiff from those freight providers to make a little bit of additional money on the freight such that they can afford to give a lower price on the product. They can also do some things more nefarious. I'm not saying that this particular vendor does, where they basically work out a deal with their freight forwarder and then the freight forwarder basically does a lower invoice value, which is illegal with customs to reduce the tariff amount, and then they take those savings. Or they fat finger the HTS code such that it goes to a HTS code that has no duty, again, highly illegal, but they pocket that difference. So you got to be really careful when they press to use their own freight forwarders. And I basically said I've actually tested their freight forwarder before, so I said, no, your agent, I've used your agent and they were very bad. We only use our freight forwarder now. So she says, okay. I said, I appreciate your help, but what I need you to solve is a lower price until the freight market is normal, help for at least the next 2 containers. So again, she goes back again to try to see if we can do the sizing. So you'll use the exact same size as this spec, or will you consider the new sizes we recommend? I said, for the viability of our business, I need these features and a better price on the current specifications. Keep in mind, this is a multi-day battle. So I think most people ask, or they maybe ask a couple times, and then when they don't get the answer they want, they suck it up to bad luck and they move on with their lives. For the things that matter in your business, when your product or the profitability and ROI rides on these things, you can't take no for an answer. You've got to be really tenacious, polite and professional, but you got to be tenacious and hard at negotiating what you need to make these things work. So I also, again, throwing out carrot, right? It's always kind of good to hit with the bat, then throw out the carrot. But if we get that pricing solved, we will add different sizes in future orders as well. So I'm basically saying I'll add some SKUs to the mix. She then says the raw material cost has gone up, so they don't think they can do it. Again, not lying, the raw material price has gone up and they have lost margin themselves. But I basically just said, that's too bad. I think this may be the end of this product line then. Sorry to share the bad news. Again, be stark with the reality of it. Let them know that there's a consequence, and that consequence may be not continuing the product. So she says, yep, I'll keep thinking. Again, I really wish to work with you. I appreciate your support, but we don't have a business if we lose money. We need at least $1 off is basically what I said. So she says $1 decrease is impossible. It's not enough for raw material. Frankly speaking, we are definitely going to lose profit. And then she goes back again to trying to see if we can change the logo, this one thing we add to the product, or the size. I said, look, that's our only differentiator. I'm asking for your best price with everything the same. We are paying $15,000 more per container. We can't bear all the burdens and tariffs on top. I'm asking help for the next 2 containers, then we can return to higher price. Years of potential long-term partnership on the line. We aren't doing this for greed, we're doing this for survival. 2 key things there, using language that I've heard years of working with Chinese suppliers and having really deep Chinese partnerships. Talking about partnerships in long term is really key. They're willing to make sacrifices in the short term for long-term gain, so I called that language out. And then letting them know that this is about survival. This isn't about being greedy, this is about being able to continue the product, and without this, we can't continue with the product. So she says, Adam, I get your point and sincerely hope we can help each other. Let me clarify the demand with you. So then we go back and forth on what the demand might look like. I'm letting her know how many I'm planning on ordering, how many containers I'm planning on ordering moving forward. She says, Adam, my hairs are going to turn white and I'm still trying to work out solutions for you. So she's grinding it out, probably talking to her management. And then she kind of goes back and says, hey, let me chat with the team. She comes back and shares the PVC price increase, which again, I believe. But she also shares a new price and emails me a new price. And that new price is $702 per unit, which is down quite a bit from where it was, especially given this environment. So she basically says, yes, and we're going to gain no profit on this, but we can deal with this price for a couple 40 high cube containers for 1 order. And of course, we can deliver them separately if you'd like. So basically, kind of over the next 3-4 months, this is enough of a price reduction. And I basically just said, awesome, we can increase the price when sea freight is improved. I basically kind of eased her pain and said, hey, we're not making a lot of money either. This is about survival again. So she says, thank you so much for your kind understanding. I'm much appreciated. And then we were basically kind of razzing on the shipper. She says, yes, the shippers make all the money from us. And again, kind of mutual alignment on what that was. So that's a negotiation. Wasn't easy. Again, if I would have kind of folded on the first, second, third, fourth, fifth attempt, we wouldn't have got there. But it was chipping away. It was being tenacious. It was understanding the numbers, being realistic about the upside and the short-term pain that was needed from both sides to be able to survive. And we came out the other end with a really decent cost reduction. So go after your vendors where it's professional and where it's feasible, and see if you can collaborate and partner with each other to reduce the cost, even in the short term, to overcome some of these cost challenges. And the 5th and final strategy really revolves around pricing and marketing optimization. It goes without saying that there's only so much you can do to curb the reality of increasing costs. Can you optimize costs? Yes. Can you make those costs less painful? Yes. But in all cases, are you going to be able to preserve sustainable margins even using all those strategies? No, not in all cases. At some point, you're going to need to increase your price. And if you're increasing your price when your competition on Amazon is not, you've got to have differentiators and marketing reasons and marketing optimizations that enable you to unlock that higher premium price point and justify it in your consumers' minds. So the first is really all about positioning. And if you are a premium offer, say on the front page of Amazon, why would a customer buy your premium offer? This is the time to really think about the differentiation of your product. Is there some things that you can do in your next production run that will justify a higher price? Whether it's bundling, it's adding something else to it, it's tweaking a feature. Think through the offer and how can you bring up a premium offering using visual differentiation that a customer can see just looking at your listing image. You should also really look at a creative revamp. If you've had the same photos on your listing and the same listing in general for the last year plus, it's time to change it up. I'm doing this with one of my brands right now. I thought it was pretty decent before, but a refresh sometimes is what you need to command that premium pricing in the market, and that investment in really high-end creative can go a long way in terms of bumping up your pricing in a consumer's mind. And then finally, as it relates to marketing optimization, something to think about is what I like to call Pareto pay-per-click. This is really honing in on those 20% of keywords that bring you 80+% of the results for your pay-per-click. It may be time for you to turn off some campaigns, to negate some words, to shut some stuff off on your Amazon pay-per-click, to make sure that your budget on pay-per-click to curb those increased advertising costs is really deployed on the keywords that matter. The keywords that bring in the most sales and ROI, the keywords that bring in the lowest ACoS and the best performance. You don't necessarily need to win on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of keywords to be profitable and successful on Amazon. I know this goes a little bit against my methodology around really scouring the earth for keywords. I think you still need to do that, but there's no use putting good money after bad and pushing campaigns and pay-per-click spend onto keywords that just aren't converting well and you're not able to rank on. It's much better to deploy that budget efficiently on the keywords where you're actually able to draw out value, you're actually able to increase organic rank, and when you've got sustainable profit margins that enable you to reorder product and grow. So that's it, guys. Again, no one said this was going to be easy, but I'm telling you, if you bite down on the mouth guard, put your head down, you have awareness of all the things happening around you with your business as well as what's in front of you, you deploy smart strategies like the ones discussed in this video, and I firmly believe that the strong will survive and the strong will be handsomely rewarded for their efforts in terms of business growth, business durability, and maximum exit potential for those that come through the fire. So let's lock arms together. Share in the comments below the strategies that are working for you and your business. Let's blow through these flames. Let's come out the other side better for it. Until next week, cheers.